All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again to this evening's live stream with VB Technologies. My name is Gershom Folkart. As you guys know, we have with us here one of our executive team members, Mr. Wait. Okay, hold on, guys. Let me. I'm hearing some feedback on my end. Give me 1 second, guys. I apologize for that. I apologize for that. Okay, my bad. Anyways, so today we have with us, as always, Mr. Jason Wong, one of the founders of VB Technologies. We also have with us James from California. James is one of our marketing guys that does most of our marketing, our online stuff, or social media stuff, and all that. James is a guru when it comes to social media marketing. We listen to him a lot. He has some good ideas for us and so forth. So he handles everything for us in the background when it comes to our live stream and everything we do on social media. So always good to have him with us. Really appreciate it. Very smart guy, very intelligent guy. Really like talking to him. All right. So, it's been a very long week. A lot of things are going on. We have a lot of information to share with you guys today. I know you guys have been, in the trenches, if you will. And certainly things are looking up as far as the lockdown is concerned. Most states are starting to open up with some restrictions. Some states are still on lockdown. But I think in the long run, overall, I think things are slowly starting to get back to somewhat normalcy. Hopefully this coronavirus thing doesn't spike again, because I'm afraid that if that happens, if we hit another situation where we start seeing a lot of cases and a lot of deaths, then we might go into a more severe lockdown. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But with the summertime, with the heat, I heard that maybe with the summertime and the heat, that may kind of like tamp down the virus and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. So we're going to get started, guys. Welcome once again. I always appreciate you guys being here. I know one thing that's fresh in the news today, we have our president just announced that we're going to sever ties with the World Health Organization. I think that's a big deal. I think also what's going on with Hong Kong and the protest and the relationship between Hong Kong and the Chinese government and what's going on there, I think that's going to have a big impact on the overall world events. So that's a big deal. So we've got to keep our eye on that, because as that, take its course and develop, depend on how things play out. I believe that if China comes down too hard on Hong Kong, I don't think the world is going to stand by too much and watch, watch that happen. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. Really like to hear you guys' feedback on that, what you guys are thinking about those situations. So, that's a big deal. Mr. Wong, what do you think about this World Health Organization separation between us and them, and also what's going on in Hong Kong right now?
Well, let's go with the WHO first. I think right now is not the time to cut back on their budgets, right? Especially at times like these when we are. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Gershom, can you hear me? Yeah, that's all. My volume is all the way up. Can you hear me, Gershom?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
People. Okay. Good. I was saying, in my opinion, it's not the time to cut back on the budget right now. Even if we think that the WHO is not functioning at its best or the way that we expect it to, we are in the middle of a pandemic. So the WHO and it needs all the help that we can provide at this point. So I hope that he'll reconsider and revert back, because especially to some of the less developed countries, they need, especially to those countries, they need more help than anybody else. Especially to some of the less developed countries, they especially it's not me. So I'm gonna let that just kind of pass by first. Are we good?
I'm getting a feedback on the sound.
Yeah, I don't know where is it coming from. It's not coming from me though.
All right, let me do that.
So sorry about that, guys. Having some little bit of a technical difficulties. But as far as Hong Kong, some of you may know I actually grew up in Hong Kong, and so to see that, it's actually very sad to see what is going on. Whenever there's conflict between the government and its citizens, uh, nothing gets done, right? And it's been like that for the last several years. Actually, people have been protesting, the government's been fighting back. Um, with this latest actually development, I do see that that the U.S., if it does actually pull the special tax status from Hong Kong, um, it would be a devastating impact, financially to the residents and also to many businesses, both over there and over here and abroad. Um, I am not a politician or familiar with these government policies. I don't know what is the best way to go about it. But here's what I do see though, and it is very evidencing. In the last, I would say, probably week or so, as they were announcing that the new national this new law that China was going to was going to approve. A lot of people actually flocked to city banks and all these international banks to open up offshore accounts. They're converting their Hong Kong dollars, even though Hong Kong dollars pegged with the USD, they're actually converting it into USDs. So news news agency have been showing lines and lines of people actually lining up to open up these offshore accounts. So it's telling you the confidence that people have, how that they have in terms of the over on the U.S. side. I wonder what kind of impact this will have on Bitcoin prices. So I want to hear from you guys and to see what you guys think in terms of it. Is that going to have a positive price effect? Is it going to push the Bitcoin price up? Do you think people would want to maybe convert their Hong Kong dollars into put some of it into Bitcoins? What do you guys think?
Well, that's a good point, Jason, because if you remember a couple of years ago, one of the issues that the Chinese government had with Bitcoin was that it was creating a capital flight from China.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people were converting their money into Bitcoin and then sending it to, over here in the States and whatnot. So that's one of the reasons why the China government started to clamp down on Bitcoin back then, because a lot of money was fleeing China through Bitcoin. And so I think with the situation in Hong Kong, we may see something like that again, to where the people in Hong Kong, as they lose confidence in what's going to happen with their government as the Chinese government come in and take over, or to be more involved in what goes on there, I think you will see a lot of that money moving into Bitcoin so they can get it out of Hong Kong before it gets trapped, if you will. So that's a good point. I think that you're going to see that. I'm interested, like you said, though, to see what our members or our viewers think about that idea. If they think that what's going on right now in Hong Kong, will that, cause a spike in the Bitcoin price? I think it may contribute. How much of a spike, I don't know, but I think it's going to contribute, because I think we're going to see a lot of capital flight leaving Hong Kong through Bitcoin.
Gresham, it's a bit of a different situation. Like China has always had, a lot of control when it comes to people moving money in and out of the country, right? However, on the other hand, Hong Kong has always been a free port, so people can actually fly into Hong Kong today and with suitcase of money, and it's perfectly legal. Um, so with that being said, I actually have a feeling that um, it might not have a as much of an impact on the Bitcoin price as it did a couple of years back when China was trying to clamp down on the on the financial fight as people are transporting money out. Because people in Hong Kong are free to take money in and out of the country, or they call it a special region, right? SAR, special administrative region. So I'm very curious to see what would happen to the Bitcoin price if we're going to see a short term push or um, from all that development. So supposingly, now the ball's on Hong Kong and China's court right now because the U.S. has already expressed it, what it's going to do, right?
Yeah. I want to kind of touch back on that point. I think you're absolutely right about that. However, right now, Hong Kong still possess some sovereignty and somewhat of a free society. Like you said, people can fly in and out, and maybe you can fly in and out with, suitcase of money and whatnot. But if things as things intensify, and if China pretty much put more of a control in terms of what's taking place in Hong Kong, then we may see that. But right now, you're right, maybe not. But I don't think the protesters in Hong Kong is going to stop protesting. I don't think they're going to back down, and that
No,
may
I don't
even
see that.
intensify. Yeah. So as that escalate, I can see where maybe the Chinese government, get more involved and get more heavy-handed, and maybe some of that freedom. They may lose some of that freedom as things escalate. So, but we'll see. It's interesting to see. But I do believe that as it develops, it's going to have tremendous impact, not necessarily just on Bitcoin, but just on the global scale in terms of global governance. So we'll see. My thing is, I'm old enough to remember Tiananmen Square. I was young, but it was been talked about when I was young, and so hopefully we don't see anything like that again in Hong Kong. I don't think that will happen, but because times have changed, there are a lot
Right.
more
I don't
eyeballs out there.
exactly.
Yeah,
So imagine when Tiananmen Square happened. It was back in 1986, I believe. So
yeah,
um, there were a lot of brave reporters actually smuggled these video, footage out of the country so that the rest of the world can see it. Today, it's just so easy.
so
People go on
yeah,
live stream,
so,
it's right there, right? So
yeah.
there's so many cameras everywhere. So there's nothing that you can hide these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to chime in
Excellent.
for 1 second, they say,
Yeah.
are we doomed to repeat is history going to repeat itself? Like, are we doomed to have history go in these cycles? But the one thing I'm really excited about, I think the biggest game changer of our lifetime and maybe ever is the internet, right? Like, things are not the same in the post-internet, social media, live stream, world. So if it's basically our ultimate safety net, the fact that information gets around so fast these days and you can't get away with the same stuff you used to.
Absolutely.
Totally
And
agree.
yeah, absolutely agree. And also just to dovetail on that a little bit, the same way how the internet changed our lives, I think the same way cryptocurrency and blockchain is going to change our lives. And we're just in the beginning stage. Because I remember when the internet first started to come out in the public sphere, if you will, and how people didn't even know what an email was or how to send an email and dial up and things like that. I think that we're in that beginning stage with cryptocurrency and blockchain. And, I can only imagine the changes that's going to come about because of free money, the people's money, where, especially with Bitcoin, where it's decentralized, where no one can control it. And I think that's going to have a tremendous impact on our society going forward in terms of freedom. Just like the internet has expanded our freedom because we can send information, we can communicate with each other instantly. All those things have changed because of the internet. I think the way we look at money and currency is going to change dramatically because of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and the blockchain technology itself.
Good point.
Yeah. So we see what happened in Hong Kong. But moving on to our next topic, I think what we have next topic coming up is the unemployment, right? So this week, 2.1 more million people filed for unemployment, right? So that pushed us right now over 40 million people in the last couple of months have filed for unemployment. So this is a good news, bad news, because it's bad news that over 2 million people filed for unemployment this week again, with a total of 40 million. But the good news is that the unemployment rate actually came down from 17+% to 14.5%. So even though, yes, 40 million people, still a lot of people out of work, unemployment rate of 14.5%, but at least it came down from 17+%. So maybe it's heading in the right direction. And I think as the economy opens back up and all these different states start to open back up slowly, then that rate is going to keep coming down, hopefully. If something has happened where we have another downturn in the market and stuff like that, then this is going to go away. But if we head in the same direction right now that we're going, we're still having many million people filing unemployment every week. But if the rate keep dropping like it did this week, then that's a good thing. What do you think, Mr. Wong?
Yeah, I think one of the, actually, I don't know if I think you saw that, you posted it, the government is going to incentivize people to go back to work, right?
Yes,
by paying them $450.
That's coming up.
And I'm sorry if I may have stolen the
yes.
Because I think it's important. I have heard so many examples from customers that they are receiving more money by sitting at home. So this unemployment benefits is actually incentivizing people from not going to work. So I'm glad that they're coming up with a solution, to counter that.
That's exactly why they're doing it, because you're absolutely right. There's so many people right now who were on the lower end as far as income, right?
Right.
And so right now, they are making more by being at home on unemployment than they were making collecting a traditional paycheck going to work. And so those people, they have no incentive to go back to work. Like, why would I go back to work? I'm making more.
And make less.
I get paid less. Like, why would I do that? So the government, to counter that, they say, okay, what if we pay you to go back to work? Like, do you guys realize what's going on? Like, we're in a time right now where the government is willing to pay people to go back to work. If someone had told you that we'd be here a year ago, even 6 months ago, you would laugh in their face. If someone told you that in May of 2020, the government will be offering people almost $500 a week just for them to go to work, would you believe it? You probably wouldn't. So things can change really, really fast, guys. And so when I saw that, first I laughed, but then I realized how serious this is, because this points to how serious the situation is. And for the government to take this drastic of an action to get people to go back to work. But on top of that, I think this also, at least the way I'm thinking about it, this also is one more thing that nudge us into a universal basic income situation. And I know I've been saying this for a while, but I truly believe that when this is all said and done, we will have some kind of universal basic income in place. What it's going to look like, I don't know, but I do believe that we will have something like that in place when this is all said and done. Go ahead, Mr. Wong.
I think, even after we, let's say that I was reading it up that we have making, good progress on the vaccine, but even if the vaccine is made available, let's say by end of the year per se, right? It's going to take people time to slowly rebuild their life back. So I agree. I mean, these universal style of income or assistance is gonna be here for longer than what we think. Which kind of like circles back. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, we keep, giving assistance and incentives for people to go back to work and people that, couldn't find a job. What do you guys think it's going to do to our, consumer price index, inflations, and definitely it's going to put us further into debt, right? What is it going to do to the values of dollars? I'm just curious to what you guys think out there, people that are tuning in today. Is it going to be a good thing for what we do here? People that mine Bitcoin.
I think by doing that, you may end up contributing eventually to the inflation. The reason why I say that is if the government, because this money that they're going to give to people is going to be printed up money, right? New money.
For sure.
So as the government print up this money so they can give to people, whatever the case may, whatever the reason, UBI or whether it's to go back to work, whatever. So you're going to have all that money that people are going to be receiving. It's not a lot as an individual, but overall it's going to be a lot, right? Maybe in trillions, whatever, I don't know. But you're going to have all that money chasing the goods out there. So when you have all this money that's chasing, if you have, let's say the supply of the goods doesn't necessarily increase or decrease or whatever, but you have more money, right, to purchase these goods, then the price is eventually going to go up. So you may end up seeing this contribute to the inflation. And right now, the analysis out there is that we may have a deflation before we get the inflation, which that's probably will happen for sure. But when the inflation comes, and it will come, I think having programs like this, like UBI and paying folks to go back to work and things like that, that's only going to add to the inflation push and maybe speed it up a little bit. I don't know if you guys have the same thought about that, but that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see to hear what our members are thinking. Actually,
yeah. All right.
$450.
Yeah, just to go back to work.
Did they say is it weekly or monthly or what is
weekly?
What is the $450? Weekly.
Weekly, yeah. They're gonna give you $450 weekly if you go back to work, and so they can either do that or just stop the unemployment. Right? They can say, okay, what? No more unemployment check for you. You need to go back to work. Because I'm thinking if it can be proven that there, we know it's happening, but if the government can prove that you as an individual, you're not going back because your employer calls you and say, hey, we open back up, we need to come back to work, and you tell them no, or you ignore them because you're getting more from unemployment, then it's justified to cut off your unemployment, I would think, right? And so, but I don't know how you prove that though. You know, but I read a story the other day that this person, she had a business, and she got the loan from the government, the PPP loan, the protection payment, pay protection, whatever.
Paycheck
Yeah.
protection program.
And so she was calling her employees to come back to work because now she can pay them.
Okay.
And they got mad at her. They're like, why did you do that? Like, we cool with the unemployment. Why are you trying to get us to come back to work? So her employees were mad at her for getting the loan, because once they had the loan, she could bring them back to work, and they were pissed off. They were mad at her for that. So it's amazing. But that's how the system get abused, because absolutely,
of course,
there are people out there who cannot go back to work right now for whatever reason. You know, most of it is because of the COVID-19 lockdown, and they legitimately need the unemployment. Absolutely, 100%. But then you're going to have those people who necessarily doesn't need it because there's a job for them available, but they don't want to go to that job because they're getting more back from unemployment. That's abusing the system. And, you know, those things always happen when you have human nature always, you know, plays a role in these things. So it's very unfortunate, but I don't know how you can single those people out and cut off their unemployment, but they make it bad for everybody else.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, and that's why they have to come up with these additional incentives for you to go back to work.
Yeah,
that's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, that's nuts. When I saw that, I was just like, okay, we're officially in la la land. Okay, this is just absolutely nuts, man.
Absolutely.
I'm afraid that things are going to get worse before they get better.
Oh, for sure.
We're going to see we're going to see a lot more craziness that, you know, before we get back to some kind of normalcy. But interesting times we live in, my friend.
I have no doubt.
Okay, so as we move on, you know, we love to bring you guys these interviews and podcasts that we come across, and so we have actually 2 videos for you guys today. And the first one that we're gonna share with you guys. First of all, if you're not on Twitter, I would suggest you get a Twitter account. Everything happens on Twitter, guys. I'm telling you right now. Even the president, like him or not, he's on Twitter. He's not on Facebook. They say he got a Facebook account, but no, he's on Twitter. All the billionaires, they're on Twitter. A lot of information is on Twitter. So you want to keep up with what's going on, whether it's Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, just the news in general, just please get a Twitter account and start to follow some very interesting people. You will be surprised at the information that you come across. But nonetheless, this first interview we're going to share with you is from one of the guys I follow. His name is Anthony Pompliano. Some of you guys may have heard about him, may even follow him and whatnot. I subscribe to his podcast, also follow him on Twitter. And so he was doing an interview with a gentleman, and this is towards the end of the interview. It's only 9 minutes long. But they're talking about how anti-fragile Bitcoin has become. And also, you know, they're talking about how really and truly, we talk about this a lot, but it's important how Wall Street is really starting to become very curious about Bitcoin. And you know, we all know that the money is on Wall Street, guys. That's where all the money is at. So, you know, when those guys really start to come in, and I thought, I knew this wasn't what's going to happen once Paul Tudor Jones kind of, you know, opened the door. You're going to start seeing a lot more Wall Street firms come into Bitcoin. So that's happening right now. So let's go ahead and watch this video. I think it's very informative. And it talks about the anti-fragility of Bitcoin, how the more you attack Bitcoin, the stronger it gets. And so let's watch this video, and then we can talk about it once we're done. So let's go ahead. Go ahead, Jen.
Before it was a religious kind of irrational type investment, right? Very similar to like a venture capital investment. So it's either going to be worth boatloads more than it is now, or it's going to be worth zero. And I think a lot of people looked at it that way. Now what people say is, well, hold on a second. Forget what asset it is. I know what's happening on the economic side because they're talking about it on television every day, right? And the numbers are just mind-boggling. What can I do, right? And there's really only three things you could do. I guess four things you could do, right? In the short term, you can hold dollars, you can hold gold, you can hold land, you can hold Bitcoin, right? And maybe there's some other, kind of crazy exotic things, whatever. But for the most part, those are four easy to understand examples. In the medium term, you probably can still hold dollars. You can hold gold, land, and Bitcoin. In the long term, you can't really hold dollars, right? Because it's going to end up getting devalued away. So now you're back to gold, real estate, and Bitcoin. And yes, I'm sure that there will be the inflation of stock prices along the way, but you still have that dislocation between the actual economic underlying data and the asset price. And so, Paul Tudor Jones wrote it, I thought really well, where he said, look, the fastest horse wins, right? And it's, I think all of these are going to go up, but this one specifically. And it reminded me, I got to go back and get it. I wrote, this is in March, I wrote a piece ranking all of the assets over the next 2 years. And I gave stocks like an 8 out of 10, right? I gave oil I think it was like a 5 out of 10. And I said gold is going to go over 2,000. I think it's going to end up somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 bucks, but it's a 2 out of 10. Yeah. Because that's really not that big of a move compared to something like a Bitcoin where the volatility is going to work in its favor, right? You're going to get this massive increase in price. And what shocked me was how many like traditional Wall Street folks reached out and they said, wait a minute, you're telling me that the same drivers of, gold or real estate is going to be the driver of Bitcoin? Like, explain that to me more. Yeah. Because they were already convinced that those other two assets were going to do well because of all the monetary stimulus stuff, right? And so I think that's where you're going to see the kind of confidence build, is that connection between what drives this price compared to that macro environment.
Another way to back into high conviction around a Bitcoin long is going back to the incentive structure for the Fed to put the S&P 500 at 5,000. Again, the way I always frame it, willing, able, incentivized, with a track record of printing. Look at that pension liability problem. We need this thing at 5,000. And you think about that as the backdrop, there's no way Bitcoin doesn't work. If that call is correct, it's highly unlikely that Bitcoin doesn't work in a really, really big way. And obviously from a percent return perspective, works massively better. That's a double. So that's a double in the S&P 500 from here, right? A little less than a double. Well, if that's the backdrop, then BTC is going to be 50,000 plus. It just is. It is. And maybe there's a chance that Satoshi moves his coins. Maybe there's a chance that somebody does something to the blockchain. Somebody steals all of Coinbase, some catastrophic, idiosyncratic type of risk. And you got to manage around those. And that's why there's active management. But like that backdrop, it's really, really unlikely that Bitcoin doesn't work in a big way there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking specifically is structurally Bitcoin couldn't be better set up for what we're seeing, right? Yeah. And it's just interest rates drop, you get printing of money, you've got a store value asset that is based on an artificially capped supply, and you just had the halving, right? Like that's the part that's so crazy to me is a lot of the analysis I see right now talks about Bitcoin in the macro environment, and they basically like as soon as they just pretend like the halving isn't even here, right? Yeah. It's like that's not even part of the analysis. When you add in that part, I continue to tell people it's like gold in 2009 when everyone should have been buying gold before it went up almost 200%. Imagine if 50% of the gold miners just shut off, right? And they just say, hey, look, half the gold supply that you thought was coming online is not coming online now.
Yeah. The other thing that's been, I think, pretty specifically around Bitcoin that's been incredible to watch over the last couple months is people talk about anti-fragility a lot, throw that around a lot, but the juxtaposition of Bitcoin's anti-fragility relative to how obviously fragile traditional financial markets have become, and so incredibly distorted. And specifically, you think about Black Thursday, and at peak to trough, Bitcoin is down 50% in 24 hours. Really hate to see that for if you're gunning for the world reserve currency, being down 50 in 24 hours is a big problem, right? I get that. But the bounce, the magnitude of the bounce, and how spot driven it's been, and also specifically around anti-fragility, this is a setup around Black Thursday. It was leverage driven. People had gotten real bulled up on the halving. People were super, super long on the perpetual swaps across all the platforms. Tether borrow rates were super high. Contango was blown out. I did a little podcast with Nathaniel Whittemore on February 14th. And at the end of it, he asked me, what do you think the biggest risk is right now? And what are you most worried about? I said how levered this market is right now. It's very levered long. That was a month before. And that was an untenable situation. And last time Bitcoin encountered a big untenable situation was the BCH BSV fork hash rate war thing in November 2018. And Bitcoin did it down 50 then too. Took a couple weeks, but it did it down 50. What happened after that was Bitmain and Jihan Wu and Craig Wright and Calvin Ayre and all the clown shows, their role in this ecosystem was diminished to the point that it got a lot harder for them to do something bad to Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, down 50, right? But it bounced all the way back and this, that, and the other. Leverage situation, very untenable. You roll through to Black Thursday, down 50 in 24 hours. But you shook, that was a nuclear bomb event in terms of the market structure for Bitcoin. I can just tell you that without getting into detail. It was just like, and the entire market structure changed. And that entire buying back, I mean, the vast majority of the bounce after Black Thursday was very much a spot driven. It was just not derivatives led. It was not leverage led. And it was mostly US spot and US retail and the herd. And we know a little bit more about what the herd did now with a little bit of hindsight, right? Herd's been buying. Like, you think Paul Tudor Jones doesn't have any friends? Like, and you get to where we are today, and you now have us at wherever we're at right now, 9K, and but the foundation underneath where we are at the price level is much more sound. And don't get me wrong, Asia is still the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but the bounce from a bunch of different angles looks to us to have been US led. And that's real healthy. And I think it's directly in response to both retail investors, high net worth, the guy buying $200 on Coinbase, from him to Paul Tudor Jones, everybody's looking at what's going on in monetary and fiscal policies, and they're going, probably worth taking a little flyer on this. This may be the best hedge on the face of the planet for this thing, and the market cap's the size of Costco, so I should, might be worth doing.
All right. So I hope you guys find that video to be, that interview to be helpful. That's just a part of the interview. Actually, it was over an hour-long interview, but kind of wanted to share that part of it with you guys. Some really good information there. Like I said, if one of the things that I really encourage you all to do is to get plugged into these resources. You will learn a lot about the space that you're in. Subscribe to some of these guys, YouTube channels. Follow them on Twitter. they are the guys that's in the space, like Pompliano. He's a VC, he's a venture capitalist guy. He does a lot of investment. He's a Wall Street guy, also served in Iraq, as in the army. So these people have a lot of information that they can, share with us as, people that's in the space and want to learn more. So I cannot recommend enough that, start follow some of these guys. The information that they're sharing with us is really going to make a difference in how you learn and understand this space and this product that you are involved with. But so what Pomp was saying, look, Wall Street guys are coming to him, want him to explain to them, more about the product, how it works, how can they get involved with it. And also they're talking about all the different times that Bitcoin have like 50% decline in price. But every time that happens, it comes back stronger. And that goes to show you how anti-fragile Bitcoin is. And anti-fragile just means that the more you attack something, the stronger it gets. Even many of you may not know this, but a lot of things happen with Bitcoin over the years, especially with the forking situation. First, Bitcoin Cash forked off of Bitcoin. Litecoin is actually a fork of Bitcoin. Bitcoin SV, Satoshi's Vision, is also a fork of Bitcoin. But by doing that, what they're doing is basically attacking the mother of all cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. But every time these guys go out and do one of these forks, it only makes Bitcoin stronger. It doesn't damage the Bitcoin, doesn't damage the network or anything like that. It makes the actual cryptocurrency of Bitcoin even stronger than it was. And every time we have one of these big dips, like 50% down, even when Bitcoin dropped from 80% from 20,000 down to 3,000 change, right? Look at it, it's coming back even stronger. More people are getting involved with it, right? Even after the halving, more people get involved with it. And the other video we have coming up for you guys after this next article we talk about, the information is going to blow your mind. But whenever I come across this information, I just feel like if it's interesting to me and I'm in this space, then I feel like maybe it's be interesting to you guys as well. That's why we bring it to you, so you can hear these things and not just hear these things from us all the time. It's always good to hear it from the guys that's out there doing the work, doing the development, investing billions in the space, that type of stuff. So hopefully you find it informative, and we'll keep bringing these videos to you from these podcasts and so forth. So that's kind of my take on it. Mr. Wong, what do you think, sir?
First of all, I want to thank you for always be on top of these informations and and helping us kind of like picked up what is important, so that we don't have to sift through thousands and thousands of different news channels and just to pick out something that is important, that is relevant to what we're doing. So thank you for doing that. One thing that I hear about the author was saying is the three basically assets that are going to be like appreciating, right? One is real estate, the other one is gold, and the third one is Bitcoin. So coming for someone who came from a real estate background, real estate actually, I do believe, even with the whole pandemic, the real estate price has been going up for about 4.6%. I believe that's the last statistics that just came out. Imagine that, right? And what do you think this is, due to? Right? It's due to the fact that there's, number one, there's not much inventory out there, but also, going into the long term is all that cheap money that is available on the street right now. A 30-year mortgage dropped down to 3.15. Maybe just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I haven't checked what the latest is for this week, but this is an interest rate that we have never heard of. I mean, at least for the last 20 years that I've been practicing real estate, I haven't seen it that low on a 30-year loan. I mean, 15 years, yes, but not on a 30. So these are all the reasons why, because of the quantitative easing. It's going to help push a lot of these assets class, up and above. And I think another important point is, is at the end of the game, we know that they are going to go up, but the fastest horse wins the race, right? Which one's going to go up faster and the strongest? So that's what I picked up from watching the video. So hope you guys picked up something new and in our checks below.
Absolutely. Speaking of interest rate, I know many people right now, if you were to tell them that, there was a time, maybe like 90s, the 80s and 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, interest rate were like 8, 9, 12%.
Mm-hmm.
And, people right now, they're crying about a 3.5% interest rate. It's like, what? You realize that a few years ago, interest rate was like, if you get 6% or 8%, you're doing good, right? So it's interesting just to see how things change. Yeah, it's very interesting. But I want to say something that may be a little bit off the reservation, if you will, as it relates to real estate. So everyone loves real estate, and you should love real estate. It's one of those things that people always need a place to live, right? People always need a place to do their business, office space, all that stuff. So you can never sneeze on real estate. The only thing that I would say as it relates to real estate is if we were to get into a serious crisis, then real estate can become a negative. Why? Because you can't take it with you. It doesn't move. So if you, I know that this is far-fetched, but if we get into a situation where you need to pick up and move, you need to take your family and get out of town, you can't take your real estate with you, right? The other thing is they can tax you out of your real estate. If things get so bad, they can make the property tax so high to where you say, you know what, I don't even want to deal with this anymore. So don't get me wrong, I love real estate. I'm a realtor, right? My mentor, Mr. Jingab, Mr. Jason Wang, they're real estate brokers. We're in the business. I love real estate. But what I'm saying is, if things really, if hit the fan, and you need to grab your family and go, you can't put your real estate in a suitcase and take it with you. So it's just a food for thought. Yes, you better have some real estate in your portfolio, but just understand that it's things can happen. All right, things can happen. But yeah, we'd love to get you guys' feedback. These things that we talk about, we love to see what you guys think about these things. What are your feedback? What are your thoughts? Let us know. Put it in the comment. By the way, give us some likes. Share this information. As we said before, we're doing this for our members, but we also want to grow our social media presence. So yes, give us some likes, share, and also put some comments in the chat. All right, let's keep it going. The next article I want to talk about is, and I'm not surprised by this. So the numbers are coming out, and the people in the medical profession are saying that they are seeing a spike in the suicide rate ever since the lockdown went into effect. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about the fact that ever since the lockdown went into effect, more domestic abuse were being reported. And when you think about it, it's kind of like, okay, what do you expect? If someone was in a kind of a rocky relationship to begin with, and now you're locked in the house with someone for 24/7 for weeks and months at a time, you're going to have these things happen. But now, even more than that, people have been locked down for so long to where they become so depressed, they lose their self-worth, they lose all motivation, because human beings need to do things. We're not designed to sit around and do nothing, right? Anyone that doesn't do anything as far as productive wise, they're not really living. So if you lock someone down as a human being to where they cannot function how they normally would, they cannot make a living, they cannot go out and see their friends, they can't see their families, they can't be out and about doing things. Yes, depression sets in. And so now, the suicide rate is going up because people just can't deal with this lockdown for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. The fact that the suicide rate is increasing and the numbers have been spiking ever since the corona lockdown started. And that's kind of sad, just on the surface of it. But when you realize what really causing it, it's even make it more sad because people want to go back to work. Yes, everyone wants to be safe and, we got to protect ourselves and our family from the virus, but human nature as human beings, we have to do stuff. We can't just sit around. As bad as the virus is, we have to find a way to get people out of their house and back in society being productive citizens. Otherwise, I think the suicide thing is only going to keep continuing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Jason, about that?
Yeah, I am not surprised to hear that the suicidal rate has gone up, and it will continue to go up. And our minds are our best medicines sometimes. And here's what I mean. Imagine all these news that are going on our TVs these days, internet, TVs, phones, right? It's nothing but negative news. Nothing but negative news. Very few positive news, right? Because negative news grabs your attention, right? It makes you binge on it, grabs your attention. So you grew in front of your TV for hours at a time, right? The way I look at it is our mind works like our garden. If you like to plant sunflowers, you put a sunflower seed in there and you grow sunflowers. If you like to plant peppers, you put pepper seeds in there and it grows peppers. If you like to plant, cilantros, you put cilantro seeds in there and it grows cilantros. But guess what? If you don't plant anything, what grows? Weeds, right? And it's just going to cloud your minds with nothing but weeds. So I totally agree with you. Right? When we as a human being, we're not designed to sit around and do nothing. So in this pandemic time where we're practicing social distancing, don't forget to improve yourself. Pick up a skill or two. There's so many free courses that you don't have to pay money that you can learn about, how to pick up a skill or two, or pick up some ebooks. A lot of our, public libraries offer free ebooks, audio books. If you hate reading, but you don't mind listening to it, they offer it at your local library. So go pick up an ebook or audio book or two, right? Learn something, learn the new skills, and learn about how to maybe close somebody, how to make someone like you, how to develop a better management skills, time management skills, right? So that when this whole new normal gets back to normal, when we're allowed to get back to our normal lifestyle, we have something that we picked up that we're not wasting our time sitting around and do nothing but let the regrowth. Because I guarantee you, if you don't do anything, but binging on these news channels 24/7, it will grow weed in your mind. And it's going to be a terrible thing for anyone to have.
Agree 100%. And that's one of the things that we have been saying ever since we started doing these live stream, is that during this time, if you're at home on lockdown, figure out a way to improve your skills and yourself so you can be in a better situation on the other side of this. Because, this will pass. Everything do. This will pass. We don't know how long it's going to take, but it will pass eventually. But the point is, how will you be better on the other side? Because you need to be better. Yeah,
Right.
We can't go through this and at the other side of this, you are still okay. First of all, no one remains the same. You're either improving or you're going backwards, right? So it's about, where do you want to be on the other side of this? And as you were saying that, Jason, about, a garden and what do you plant, that's what you're going to reap. The old saying goes, you reap what you sow. And I remember when I was a young man, one of the saying that we used to say, and I'm not sure if they still say it these days, is, garbage in, garbage out. What you put in your mind is what's going to come out. So, as you were talking about, what are the programs that you are watching on television? What are the things that you put inside of your mind? That's what's going to, dictate your actions. And so if you're someone that have a tendency to be depressed and, be sad and whatnot, then don't watch the news.
Yep.
Don't watch those things. Find something uplifting to do. Believe it or not, you don't need a TV in your house. I don't have a TV. I haven't watched TV literally in maybe like 15 years. I do a lot of YouTube, but a lot of YouTube stuff. But I realized a very long time ago that television was detrimental to your well-being. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, I don't watch TV. The closer I get to it, the closer I get to a TV, I like the Eagles.
Yeah.
So during football season, I go someplace to watch the Eagles. My uncle loved the Eagles, so I go watch the game with him. But beyond that, I don't watch the news. I don't watch TV. I tell people all the time, I've never seen Dancing with the Stars. I've never seen none of that stuff. I've never seen any of those shows. I know about them because people talk about them, but I never watch them. I don't watch TV, so that's my personal thing, But yeah.
Yeah, your mental health is actually at your control, right? We are our best medicine, our minds. So if you keep on watching these, let's say, pandemics, and you start watching one negative news after another, it's gonna sooner or later you're gonna think the world's gonna come to an end. It's gonna become, in your own mind, a self-fulfilled prophecy.
Absolutely.
Right? So go plan something healthy, right? Go feed your mind something healthy, something positive, so that you can come out of this thing ahead of the rest of the group, ahead of the rest of the population, ahead of the rest of the people that you know, right? So make it a positive experience out of this.
100%. All right, guys. So we're going to leave you guys with one last video. This one you guys are going to love, because this one talks about us miners, right? But this is a podcast that I also subscribe to this podcast. And so many of you may have heard about Grayscale. And Grayscale is a fund that does investment for wealthy clients. And they're more inclined to invest in Bitcoin. As a matter of fact, the two commercials that we showed you guys last week, they're the ones that put those two commercials together, when they say drop gold, and that you should, gold is just a rock. And I don't subscribe to that. I like gold. But anyway, so right now, Grayscale is buying up the equivalent of 150% of the Bitcoin that's mined right now. So they're gobbling up Bitcoin on a large scale. So this particular video it's very short, maybe 3.5 minutes or so. But what he's talking about in terms of what Grayscale is doing, and what most of the Wall Street firms, what they're doing, as it relates to being involved in Bitcoin, and how it relates to us as miners. I do believe that you guys will find this information to be very helpful. So whenever you're ready, James, you can go ahead and play the video.
Now, to be clear, I'm not super comfortable with the huge accumulation that we see starting to take place on Wall Street, but it is happening. You can't ignore reality. And this next story, I really think that it underlines what is happening on Wall Street right now. Grayscale, they're in the news again. They are buying up literally all of the newly mined Bitcoin. But that is not all. They are buying so much Bitcoin, it's the equivalent of 150% of all newly mined
I'm not sure where that's coming
Bitcoin.
from, Jim. It's not me.
Since the
I mute my
Bitcoin
stuff, so I'm
halving,
not sure
Grayscale has bought
what's
19,000
causing that.
Bitcoin, but only 12,300 Bitcoin has been mined in that time. Did you hear what I just said? This is crazy. This one single entity is buying 50% more Bitcoin than is being produced right now. Holy duck and duck, man, this is wild. One single entity is sucking up more Bitcoin right now than the miners can actually produce on a daily basis. And then, of course, we can factor in all the other entities buying up Bitcoin, Fidelity and Bakkt, and hedge funds, millionaires and billionaires, your Uncle Bob, and yes, even you and me. This is craziness. Now, you might start to ask yourself, seeing a story like that, well, Lark, why has the price not mooned if this is happening? Got an answer for that. Because smart players like this, they're buying their Bitcoin OTC, so it's not getting registered on the exchanges when they make these. They're not going out and doing a market order on Kraken for $200 million. They actively buy dips, and they do everything in their power to accumulate Bitcoin very quietly, very stealthily, so as not to cause big price spikes so they can continue to accumulate. Another factor, too, of course, is that miners are actually starting to offload their inventory from what they mined before the halving. That's creating a lot of selling pressure right now. Once this pressure clears up, then we will start to see the price of Bitcoin responding more to this massive increase in demand that we've seen. So you need to understand the price, it's not going to stay under $10,000 forever. Much sooner than many people realize, this demand is going to start having a big effect on the price. Why? Because literally one single entity is buying more Bitcoin than is being produced right now. There's no way the price stays where it is right now long term. Demand is rising for Bitcoin across the board right now. And while we see this demand rising, the supply is being gobbled up with a single entity and with just intensity that we've never really seen before, with all these new players starting to enter the market. This cycle that we're seeing right now, this is going to be the cycle when we really see Wall Street FOMO into Bitcoin. All these hedge funds and stuff, they're coming. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. The good thing is that the price is going to go up. Moon time, baby. The bad thing is that if this trend continues, then Wall Street players like Bakkt and like Grayscale, they're going to end up controlling an uncomfortably large percentage of the Bitcoin supply, allowing them, of course, to run even more manipulation games than they already do. And you know how Wall Street loves this manipulation. But regardless of the long-term impact, you cannot argue with the reality of the impact that this demand is going to start having on the price throughout 2020, moving into 2021. Very exciting times ahead. Also, Grayscale, while primarily being into Bitcoin, they are also buying huge amounts of Ethereum. You can see on this chart here how much in dollar value they currently hold of different assets. Yes, Bitcoin is number one, but Ethereum is number two. Don't sleep on Ethereum, guys. Also, the funny thing is that while all of this is happening, Goldman Sachs, they tried to FUD Bitcoin the other day. But of course, the attempts by Goldman Sachs to run out and FUD Bitcoin didn't work. Nobody cares about you, Goldman Sachs. And look, the Goldman Sachs FUD, it wasn't even good FUD, man. It was just recycled garbage from the past. They were like, oh, Tulip Mania. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Come on, Tulip Mania. Let's find something new, guys. Seriously. They brought up other FUD like, oh, Bitcoin's just used by criminals, in spite, of course, of all relevant metrics and studies into this particular topic, showing that it is around 0.1% of all transactions and that the dollar remains king of criminality. Look, this stuff from Goldman Sachs is either total ignorance from them or directed FUD to allow them to get more Bitcoin before the hedge funds flood in. Maybe they're just saying, stop, hedge funds, don't buy Bitcoin. We need to get some more. I mean, the fact that they had to address Bitcoin anyway on a client call, it really tells you everything that you need to know. The hedge funds, the high net worth individuals, the Wall Street traders, all these guys, they all are interested in and want to buy Bitcoin.
right, here we go. So,
All right.
I hope you guys find a video to be helpful. But here's the thing I want you guys to really think about. Okay. So you have to understand that we are in a very exclusive club as Bitcoin miners, right? And then beyond that, you know, most miners or mining companies that's mining Bitcoin, they're mining their Bitcoin and they're selling it to these guys. They're selling it to these big fund, the big hedge funds, right? But our company, we're in this very exclusive club, but the Bitcoins that we mine, we distribute it to our members. We are mining Bitcoin and we're keeping it for ourselves.
Right.
Those other mining companies, they're mining Bitcoin and they're selling it to Wall Street guys. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine because we need that for the price. I get all that. But what I'm saying to you is what we're doing as a community to where the Bitcoin that we're mining, we're holding on to it for ourselves. Do you have any idea how exclusive that is? Do you know how many people would love to be in our shoes right now? Right? So when I was listening to this podcast and I heard about, I know about Grayscale, we all know about Grayscale, but then it hit me like, man, I feel so proud. I feel so proud of Mr. Jason Wong for being one of the founders, Mr. Don Vo, Mr. Jing Gao, right? For all of our members, like what we're doing is very, very exclusive and I hold it dear to my heart and I feel like it's sacred because there are very few people that's doing what we're doing, guys. Very few people are doing what we're doing, right? So, yeah, I saw that and I said, you know what? My peeps need to hear this. We are in a very, very exclusive situation, and I really hope that you all appreciate what we're doing. We're literally mining Bitcoin, but we're not selling it. We are holding on to it for ourselves so we can benefit from it, not just the big hedge fund guys, not just the billionaires. Why sell it to them? Let our members have it, right? So that's kind of my take on that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the information. I would love to hear what Mr. Wong has to say about it.
Hey, you know, the reason why a lot of these mining companies out there have to sell what they mine is because they are heavily leveraged. And so they have to pay for that service, right? I mean, the data center that they build, the machines that they would acquire, you know, the personnel that they hire, they have to pay for these, you know, expenses. So in order to do that, they have to sell off a majority part of their mining proceeds or mine Bitcoin so that they can cover those expenses. So, you know, we operate very differently. I mean, our members buy individual machines from us. As a result, they own the machines, right? So whatever they mine belongs to them. They can do whatever they want, you know, with it. So, which is a very different model. I'm so happy that our members are able to take advantage of the Bitcoin price that is still low right now, so that they hold on to the Bitcoin, you know, that they mine. So in the long run, it's going to benefit them more, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely. Moonshot, baby. Moonshot. All right, guys. I think this brings us to the end of today's live stream. I know we're in a little long, but you know, we want to get this information out to you guys. And you know, every live stream, you know, sometimes when we put this live stream together, we have to peel back some of the information that we want to bring to you guys because we know that the show will go too long. But there's a lot of information out there that, you know, we want to bring it to you with a different spin than what you would maybe see on CNN or on Fox or MSNBC or those mainstream broadcasts. You know, the information that we're trying to bring to you guys, even if it's out there in the mainstream, it's not being discussed on the level that we would like for it to be discussed and pick it apart. You know, and then there are information that you're not going to get on the mainstream. So, you know, hopefully you guys are enjoying these live streams. You know, if you all let us know, we appreciate doing it. We love doing it. And as long as you guys are here and benefiting from it, then we're going to keep doing it. All right. So, and if matter of fact, real quick, James, do we have any questions out there from the people? Awesome. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Any last words for the folks out there, Mr. Wong?
Stay safe, guys. All right. This thing will be over. I'm seeing a lot of positive news coming up on the COVID-19 vaccines that are in development. So hopefully we'll get that sooner rather than later. But most importantly, keep a healthy mind. All right. Don't let all that negativities or negative news get into your mind and start growing weeds in it. So feed it with some positive news, and let's go from there.
Yes, the same, guys. You guys be safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And just like Mr. Wong said, feed your mind positive stuff. And, this is something personal for me, but I wanted to say this. Really think about how you engage with your television. Just, it's an addiction. I'm telling you right now, when I decided to stop watching TV, it was very difficult because I was almost addicted to it. I used to watch ESPN like all day long, because I'm a sports guy. But it's an addiction, and trying to wean yourself from television is very difficult. But I guarantee you, once you do it, you will see life in a whole different way, and in a healthy way. So give it some thought. Give it some thought. Really, think about it. With that being said, guys, thank you guys for joining us. Always appreciate it. We love each and every single one of you. You guys are a family. Don't forget to join us next Monday, 5:30, same time, same place, for another live stream. And then, as always, Monday night at 9 p.m., we have our webinars for a compensation structure for a company. And for those of you who are just, watching this podcast or this live stream for the first time, or just a guest, always reach out to, any person that invite you here, reach out to that person. They can give you more information about our company, VB Technologies, and our Bitcoin mining. You can also go to our website at vbitmining.com. You can also, if you want to just inquire about some information, you reach out to us at support@vbtech.com. With that being said, guys, have a wonderful weekend. You guys take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys on the next live stream Monday at 5:30. Have a good weekend. You guys take care.